Hey guys, Greg here. Just wanted to sit down tonight and record another winning characteristics video. I think it would be interesting to go over coin, which has been obviously a monster the past couple of sessions. And after last night's winning characteristics video, I felt like it would be good to go through everything that I saw when I was marking it up and then kind of go through my thought process over the recent action. So, like we've done with every winning characteristics video so far, is I want to start by understanding the character of the stock first and foremost. So if I just look left on the chart here, I can see obviously from IPO it got smashed, it tried, got smashed again, and then kind of went into a basing period. After each sort of little run up, like right here or right here, we see it in the RS line, we get, some strong upticks, and then really we just sell down. So understanding this, I can start to shape how I think the stock should act on strength. Obviously, I'm going to think it's going to get sold. And then in, that sort of opposite idea, if I'm looking for character change, if strong price moves don't get sold, I see there's new institutional interest or something going on in the stock that's different than how it acted, in recent price history. So again, we go through this RS line after knowing the character of the stock. We see each pop gets sold on the RS line. There's some longer durations here, some longer durations here, and then finally, off the lows, we start seeing some true RS build, and then currently we're seeing some acceleration of this RS line. So if we want to zoom in, actually, we have the SPX here in the backdrop. We see obviously sell off, and then at the bottom here is when, right before the bottom actually, coins RS started to turn up. So that's a key characteristic here that we're going to look for in future leaders, and see that this RS line might start turning up before the market actually bottoms. And then once we get a bottoming, kind of trend change, that RS line should be pumping higher as well. And that's exactly like, if I zoom in again, that's exactly what happened with coin. So that's key. And really the character change is being led by RS. You're going to look at, we're below all moving averages, not much is going on, we're near the lows of the structure, but this RS line is starting to turn up, and that's key, so that when market pressure starts to lift and we get some accumulation volume coming in, we see a blast off in price. If we move down to just the price and volume characteristics overall, we got a 72.5 million share float. That's winning characteristic number one, because a small float allows demand to really show up in the stock. It also allows supply when it's present to show up on the chart, but obviously we want to be focusing on what type of float characteristics are going to lead to monster winners. Next, it's a very liquid IPO. So we have, on IPO day, if we zoom over here, we got 81 million shares traded on IPO day, 40 to follow it up, 22, 11, 18. So it's very liquid. And even on dry ups down here with this orange volume, we're getting over 3 million shares traded. And this is obviously a $200 stock. So it's dollar volume's high, and so is just shares overall traded. Moving on, obviously we have some proper accumulation / distribution characteristics. So we're seeing throughout this entire base, green accumulation volume, strong blue up days in the volume side of things, and then on dry ups or price decreases, we see dry ups. Again, accumulation. So if you go throughout this entire volume structure, we can just see the level of accumulation occurring, even if the stock price is at lows. And then more recently, obviously we get some more accumulation volume. And this day, October 6th, wasn't even the low of the RS. RS started to turn up back in late September. So we're starting to see RS turn up and then accumulation on top of that. So our minds have to be thinking, okay, something different is going on here. And so to add to that, we obviously get each one of these days in succession is getting higher and higher volume. So people are still, big money managers are still trying to pile into this thing and get all the shares that they can. Moving on, this final day, today actually, 14.78 million shares traded. That's going to be the highest since the 19th of May and goes down as it looks to be the 4th or 5th highest of all time. So, when we see positive price action back to back to back days like that, obviously something's going on and we have to pay attention. Now, if we want to move into the actual price, we've obviously already talked about how its character has been to kind of trade choppily in a manner where we'll get maybe a couple up days or a week of accumulation and then just sell. What we're seeing right now is, this is going to be over a 2-week period in which coin has been moving up and holding price gains, which is key. Now, if you want to zoom in a little bit more here, we've seen, ranges in the prior areas be pretty wide, which is not a surprise as it's kind of traded crazily. But at the lows here, we're seeing volume sort of dry up and price tightening, which is key, showing us that sellers may have been exhausted and demand is going to become the main force driving the stock. Now, this past weekend, I studied extensively Oliver Kell's masterclass with Traderline, and something I learned was this reversal extension and price cycle concept. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description below to see if you can get access to that course or masterclass. But this is a reversal extension and may signify that sellers have been exhausted at the bottom here. We can see a large range between the 10 EMA, which is blue, and the 20 EMA, which is red. That's clue number one. And then we kind of get a wedge pop back through the moving averages after we see this tightness. And you could possibly say that this area as well signified the actual wedge pop, but it could be wedge pop number 2 depending on what your interpretation is. But more importantly, not to harp on what we're going to name each of these little patterns. We see gap here that wasn't filled, gap here that wasn't filled, another gap here that wasn't filled, gap here that wasn't filled. So we have multiple gaps, and what this means is there's just consistent strength coming into the name. There's buying consistently and in a large fashion. We also see some key moving average support here after being taken back, and then a blast through the longer term moving averages. So again, everything here is telling us that some sort of character is changing in the stock, and we want to find ways to get long when we see all of these characteristics come into play. Finally, in terms of the price action, we can see some prior highs that were acting as resistance have been taken out in a very, very impressive manner. Seeing this 280 area getting bid up aggressively, 294 area finding support today, which was also yesterday's close, and then again we're closing over 300, which is super key on the psychological aspect of things. Obviously, we have this 307 area, which we closed pretty much right at today. That will be potentially resistance going forward. But everything the stock's doing right now is incredibly impressive, and tells us that demand has become the strongest force in the market so far in this name. Now, if we want to move to the fundamental side of things, we can flip over to MarketSmith. Let me just pop that in real quick. Close this, and close this. And we can see here that if we jump over to the weekly, we got huge sales numbers as well as huge EPS numbers. Again, these things are all adding to my conviction. Price and volume will be number one along with relative strength. But when I see things like this, I know if I can find a low risk entry, it's going to be worth my while to size. Now again, this 2021 estimate insane. I know next year's estimates have obviously dropped off, but they've been revised upwards, so that's a good thing to see as well. Moving on, if we want to look at institutional ownership here, we got Fidelity and JP Morgan in there, so that's nice to see. And then I'm looking to see this number U-turn here. So we have 388, 370. Now let's see if we can kind of get, some action like this, which is kind of what the stock's been doing, showing pretty impressive accumulation signs throughout the base. Finally, if we want to look at the group, 41 over 197, but we all know, what coin can offer if crypto adoption as well as the NFT market space, really gets going in terms of a public adoption, which is super, super interesting and is obviously what institutions are going with here. Finally, if we want to look at the IBT/IOF market, we're very active in both, and if I go over and pick those charts up, I'll show you in a second. All right, we're back here with the levels by trader line, money flow team. We're looking at the institutional block trades market here, and we can see at the lows, not a lot of transactions, but something that set it off kind of through this wedge pop, which we talked about on the other chart. We got a block trade in here and then more block trades as we move up. So it's no coincidence that this strength comes along with, large size transactions. If we want to flip over to the options market, it's kind of been active the whole time, which goes back to what we talked about, how the IPO has been, quite liquid in itself. But this is pretty key here and really telling about the sentiment going on. There's been some decently sized options transactions. So with all those things said, the conviction to find a low risk spot to get in this name is high, and this name in itself can come in to your universe in many different ways. If you have a up on volume scan, it would have come up the past 4 days. If you maintain an IPO watch list, like I've learned to do through the TL Private handle under TraderLion, we've really started to hone in and understand how stocks like this that will look to win can come about your universe, and hopefully you can start to make money off them. So that'll be it for tonight's walkthrough. It's a little bit longer. We're looking at 12 minutes, but I think this chart speaks for itself and is really worth the time spent on analyzing. Let me know what you guys think. If you want more like this with a video and a little bit longer of a walkthrough, let me know. If not, also let me know. But that'll do it for tonight. Thanks.